2010 was a memorable year for a lot of reasons. A magnitude 7 earthquake hit Haiti, Justin Bieber released his debut album, and of course the 19th FIFA World Cup took place for the first time in South Africa. There was just one problem. The official match ball of the World Cup quickly proved to be one of the most controversial ever created.
Beach ball, that's what it is. It's an $200 beach ball.
Ball's tragic. I mean, it's no secret, everyone said that.
So today, nearly 10 years on after its initial release, we look back and ask the question if the Jabulani actually was that bad. When Adidas unveiled the Jabulani to the world on the 4th of December 2009, I think it's safe to say they didn't receive the reception they were hoping for. The new World Cup ball featured just 8 panels, the fewest ever seen from a top brand. Needless to say, the new design was a big risk to take by Adidas, especially on the world's biggest stage. And even before preparations began to kick off for the World Cup in South Africa, players and coaches heavily criticised the ball for being too unreliable. The main problem lied with the fact that the ball lacked pretty much any seams, and to add to this, the ball was surprisingly too round, which affected the flight of the ball. For those of you who don't know, seams and rougher surfaces on a football make it more reliable in the air, and if we remove these elements, we ultimately make it less reliable. To combat this, Adidas implemented their new grip and groove technology on the ball, but ultimately I don't think this had any positive effect on the flight of the ball. One of the other main problems was Adidas's new production methods at the 2010 World Cup and their choice to use 3D panels, which actually made the ball too perfect. To add to this, the 2010 World Cup is going to be played at altitudes 1,000 metres above sea level, and if we pair the already unstable Jabulani with the higher altitudes, the situation only seemed to get a lot worse. To put the knuckle effect of the Jabulani into perspective, an ordinary 32-panel football starts to knuckle at around 30 miles per hour, whereas the Jabulani started to knuckle at around 50 to 55 miles per hour, which is the average kicking speed of a normal World Cup athlete. In retrospect, at the time, I don't think the Jabulani was anything out of the ordinary. After all, the World Cup brings with it discussions, and usually the football is the centre of attention. Even through all the ordinary criticisms though, I don't think anyone could have predicted the storm that awaited the Jabulani in South Africa. I almost feel like no matter what football was used at the 2010 World Cup, it was going to be received in the same way. At the altitude the matches were being played at, and the way Adidas's innovations were moving, I almost feel like the reception of the ball was going to be inevitable. However biased I am towards the Jabulani for nostalgic reasons, I will admit it is a difficult ball to get used to, and even after just a couple of sessions with the ball, I can see how it can be easily knuckled and overhit. In my opinion, it was mainly Adidas's integrity for innovation that cost them at this World Cup. It's clear to see the path they were taking leading up to the 2010 World Cup, and with increased competition from Nike with the release of the Ascent, they really did have to push all the boundaries to stay at the top of the football innovation pyramid. However, pushing boundaries does have consequences, especially if we try to reinvent the basic genetics of the football. I think the Jabulani represented the peak of Adidas's stint with taking risks, as 4 years later we saw a World Cup ball that was basically perfect and had no complaints at all. World Cup well underway in June 2010 and controversy continuing to grow around the Jabulani, I think the ball quickly became a scapegoat during the tournament. With unforced errors from Rob Green against the USA and Frank Lampard's disallowed goal against Germany, I think it made sense to blame the ball, which leading up to the tournament was the centre of so much controversy. Now, I'm not going to completely disregard the fact that the ball had its faults, but I also feel that the problems with the ball were blown way out of proportion for the sake of shifting away the blame from individual mistakes. Because of this, I don't think it can be argued that the Jabulani quickly became a scapegoat during the tournament, and why wouldn't it? With the problems of the ball being so openly publicised, it would be easily blamed for nearly all goalkeeping mistakes and errors with long-range shots. Even in comparison to the Adidas Teamgeist, it doesn't behave a whole lot differently, and I would go so far as to say some of the problems people had with the ball were completely ridiculous. Craig Johnson, former innovator at Adidas, even said you couldn't achieve curve on the ball, but after just a couple of minutes with the ball myself, I found out this wasn't true at all. Long-range passing was particularly criticised, with players complaining that the ball wobbled too much in the air and didn't travel as far over long distances. The elasticity of the ball was brought into light for this, with the conception that the ball bounced a lot more than an ordinary football. Although after testing this out for myself, I think the results are pretty much indifferent. In my opinion, it was mainly the controversy around the Jabulani that caused people to unfairly criticise the ball. Even through all this though, I will say that it is a difficult ball to get used to, and with the lack of drag on the ball, it is difficult to control when you're taking shots with it. However, I will say that saying you can't get curve on the ball altogether is just not really fair on the Jabulani. Taking everything into consideration though, I will say that the controversy around the Jabulani only added to the hype of the tournament and the overall enjoyment of the 2010 World Cup. So where does the Jabulani stand nearly 10 years after its initial release? Well, to me the Jabulani symbolises so much more than just a football. In a game that's now so heavily influenced by VAR and goal line technology, the Jabulani signifies a much simpler time in the world of football. Discussions and arguments easily broke out over things like Frank Lampard's goal against Germany, whereas today VAR leaves little to be talked about. And while new technology arguably makes the game a lot better, I can't help but feel that the 2010 World Cup was a lot better because of the lack of such perfection. Suarez's goal line clearance and the Netherlands foul play in the final gave the viewers something to talk about, and all the while the Jabulani remained at the centre of attention. As controversial as the Jabulani was, I think it'll always be loved because of the memories that are associated with the ball. The hype and songs around the 2010 World Cup were unlike any other World Cup before it, and which is why I think the Jabulani is so fondly remembered. So nearly 10 years on, and I think it's finally time to answer the question if the Jabulani actually was that bad, and to be honest, it's not. Don't get me wrong, the ball isn't ordinary by any means, but at the same time I don't think it deserved all the criticism it got. Even the 2006 Adidas Teamgeist behaved somewhat similarly to the ball, and while I can't say for certain how much of an effect the altitude had on the Jabulani, the controversy around the ball mainly comes down to exaggerations and taking the blame away from individual mistakes. Looking back, I think it's obvious to see that the Jabulani was the catalyst for a major evolution in the football industry, and 10 years on, it's still the biggest innovation from any football brand in my opinion. Even with the creation of mid-cut boots, nothing comes close to the Jabulani in my opinion. The design and colours of the ball make it easily distinguishable as one of the most iconic pieces of World Cup history ever. The controversy the Jabulani created is unlike anything we'll ever see again, and why 10 years on it still creates a sense of nostalgia like no other football could. My name's been DavidMC, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.